welcome back to Learn to Crochet with me, part 4. I'm Aaron, the Crochet Carpenter, and this series is designed for beginners or anybody who is like new to the hobby or needs a refresher on some things. And I'm honestly like, I don't want to throw all this information at you, but I'm trying to organize it. So like in today's video, we're going to go over explaining the right side versus the wrong side of your crochet project, how to stuff, how to add safety eyes, and a little bit about like info on those and the ones that I like to use, how to close the final round when you're working amigurumi, how to face shape for some extra detail, and how to embroider. Not eyes, I'm just talking like noses, and I mean it could be eyes as well, but I'm going to go over how to embroider a nose on Poncho the Pup. And then in the next video, I'm just going to keep adding more information, and as we go through the series, it will become more, not harder information, but just like things that I've picked up as I go down the road in my crochet career. So let's get started. Alright, so like I said, we're going to go over explaining the right side and the wrong side of your stitches and of your project when working in the round. Because when you're working in the flat, as seen, where did it go? Where did it go? There it is. As seen here, because you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, there isn't really a right side or a wrong side. But when you're working in the round, like this, the side that your stitches are, where you're pulling through to, that's the right side. And this is the wrong side, because this is the side where your hook goes through and pulls them from, if that makes sense. So when you're working amigurumi, the side that is facing me right now, because I'm right-handed, I'm working in a clockwise spiral, and my work is always going to be on this side instead of this side, if that makes sense. Just to give you a better gauge of like how it should be oriented, because when I first started, I was working like this, where my hook was over there, and my project was like, I was working the opposite way and I was working counterclockwise, and I thought that this was the right side, but that is in fact the wrong side. The right side is when you pull the stitch through. Now that is how you know it's the right side, because you pulled the stitch towards you, so it shows this side of the stitch, which looks slightly different. I don't know if you can tell based on the camera there, but you can see the stitches, whereas this side you're looking at the back side and they're not as defined. So that's the difference between the right side and the back and the wrong side. And you always want to have everything be uniform. So say you do choose to work with the wrong side out, as some people do, just make sure that your wrong side is always facing out. But typically, with all of the instructions in crochet patterns, they're designed where the right side is facing you. That way your bobble stitches, your picot stitches, any details are going to be facing on the outside of the project, whereas the right side. All right, so now we're going to go over the art of stuffing. This is something that it's not too difficult, but there is ways that you can do it wrong. You can overstuff and end up stretching your stitches, and then you end up seeing the stuffing come through the gaps because you have put too much stuffing in. You want to go little by little so that each area is properly filled out, especially like for this pup, so that the nose is sufficiently stuffed, and then you still have like the shaping for the forehead. So to do so, just take little bits of stuffing and stuff the body. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can use sticks for this. I just use my fingers. Little by little, make sure you're filling out all of the areas so that it's nice and plump. Personally, I like my plushies to be like not rock hard, but firm, because over time the fibers are going to weave themselves together, and then say a year down the road, after kids have loved and hugged and squeezed, it might look a little limp, whereas if you sufficiently stuff it, that's not really an issue that you'll ever run into. Hope this helps.
So next up, we're going to talk about safety eyes. As you can see, these come in all different shapes and sizes. I mean, typically they're round, but there are oval ones, there's nose-shaped ones, there's heart ones even. But these are typically what we use for our eyes. They are not recommended for anybody that is under 3 years of age, based on the fact that they're small, they can be choking hazards. But in order to try and prevent this, I'm really picky about the ones that I use. I use this brand from Amazon. I used to have to order them online from AliExpress or Temu, but they're more widely available on Amazon. You could also use hand-painted sinker eyes like these. These come as blanks, and then people use resin and mica powders and glitters to decorate them. And then you actually have to put a lot more force into these ones when you're attaching. So I find that these ones are a little bit safer, less choking hazard risk. But personally, I use these because they're the ones that make me the most comfortable. And the reason that is because instead of having, if you've ever seen safety eyes from Amazon, most of them have silicone washers. I don't have any right now for an example because honestly I threw them all out because I don't like using them. These ones are hard plastic. You cannot bend them, they're not flexible, they are rigid, and when they lock onto the eyes, onto the post, you want to click them down all the way, and then it takes a lot of force to pull them off. Like in Canada, I think that it is 5 pounds for 5 minutes, and these ones passed the test for me. So they're what I've been using for a long time. To insert them, what you're going to do is you find the spot where you're going to put them. For this instance, the dog's eyes go right about here. So I place the post through a stitch, or through the space between 2 stitches, whichever you prefer. Make sure that they're spaced evenly and they look like they're going to be where they're supposed to be. Because once they're in there, they're not coming off. Okay? So this is the right side. And then I'm going to flip it inside, and you can see that the post sticks through to the back. And it's got these ridges. So you take the washer and you push it on so that it goes click, click. Usually I can get 2 clicks with these ones. And then I cannot pull this off, no matter how hard I try. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to go click, click, and now that is secure. And when you do the double click too, it kind of pulls them in so it looks like they're indented a little bit more. Now, when I'm using blanket yarn, the smallest eyes that I will go down to are a 14 millimeter, because the washers are large enough and the eyes are large enough that they're not going to pull through any of the stitch spaces. This is totally based on my tension. Yours might be slightly different. I do have smaller eyes, but I typically use these for other types of yarn, or if it's a custom order and somebody really wants 12s or 10s, and I know it's not for a child, then it's okay, because they're not just going to fall out. They have to be pulled out. But hopefully that explains safety eyes for you a little bit more. Okay, so once our project is sufficiently stuffed, you're always going to end up with an opening like this. So you're going to take that long yarn tail that you left and thread it on your tapestry or embroidery needle, as such. And then we're going to go and sew whatever leftover stitches are closed, cinching them shut as we go. So I go from the outside to the inside, back and forth, and then inside to outside. And I do this all the way around. And I pull tight a little bit as I go. Inside, outside, over and over again. And then pull, 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 and see how it cinched it shut? Now I take my hook, and to secure this end, this is my preferred method, I'm going to make 2 surface slip stitches. So to do so, insert the hook around a stitch, yarn over, and pull through so you have 1 loop on the hook, then yarn over and pull through and pull tight, pulling this end all the way through like I just did. We're going to do this one more time. So insert, yarn over, pull through to have a loop on the hook, yarn over, pull through, and pull all the way through. And then after we have pulled this tight the second time, we've now finished 2 surface slip stitches, which secure this end and make it so that the opening can never open again. And we're going to just take our scissors or our hook or something and simply tuck this loose end inside. Since this is amigurumi, this end can just get hidden inside and act as stuffing, and then it's like it was never there to begin with. And that's how you close off the end of your project. All right, the next thing we're going to go over is how to face shape. This is done as a way to add some more detail. So essentially with the dog here for my example, when I face shape, it's going to bring the eyes closer together and indent them a bit and make this nose bridge more pronounced. So I've got yarn in the same color, threaded onto my tapestry needle. I'm going to insert at the top of the head. It could be the bottom of the head, the top is easier. And I'm going to bring it out right next to the eye, near the back of the eye. And pull this through until there's a little bit. And then see how it pulled polyfill through? If you pull this back, it pulls it back into the, well, it pulls some of it back into the head. Clean up the rest. And then I'm going to insert the hook maybe 1 or 2 stitches away on the top of the eye and bring it out symmetrically on the opposite side above the other eye. And pull that tight. So it looks like I've created an eyebrow, see? But when you pull it tight, you don't see it anymore. And then same spot behind the eye, or towards the back, I insert the needle, and I'm going to bring it out again in the same spot I did originally. Now here's the magic. I'm going to hold the eyes close and pull this tight. See how it's now cinched a little bit more? And I'm going to go back over to this side. And then skip a stitch once more. And I'm going to bring it out at the same spot where I entered, whether it was the top or the bottom. For me, it's the top. Pull, pull, pull. Clean it up a little bit. And then I'm going to pull these tighter without snapping the yarn. And then again, cut these tails so that they're a bit shorter. See what I mean by face shaping? Sometimes you got to move the stuffing around to fill it out, manhandle it a little bit. I'm going to tie these two in 2 square knots and then tuck them inside the body. 1, 2, then take my scissors, use the skizzers to shove them inside. Now they are hidden, nobody knows that they were ever there. And our dog's got a bit more of a pronounced ridgeline along the nose and the snout. This can be done on many different patterns for many different uses, but this is just one example. Okay, so now we're going to go over how to add a nose, just like this. Whether it's just a nose or it's got the vertical line, we're just going to go over some embroidery, which is, when it comes to amigurumi, I look at embroidery as drawing with yarn. So we just drew this nose on here, or we just, where's another one? Sorry, we just drew this nose on here with the bunny, and you're just drawing with yarn. And this is what I mean. So I'm going to use brown to make a brown nose on this dog, I think. So I take my embroidery needle and my yarn of my choosing, and then I like to insert from the bottom, and for example for the nose I'm going to draw the vertical line first, and that entails like this. So you're just going to go in and out of the stitches, and then for the nose So the vertical line, I just do 1. And every time you pull your yarn through, you're going to notice that eventually you end up having these fibers from the polyfill that the yarn is pulling to the outside. So I like to clean them up as I go because otherwise they get trapped and locked in the yarn, and then it's harder to clean them up after. So the nose, it just consists of a whole bunch of horizontal lines made repetitively. I usually do like 4 or 5 for a nose like this. Sorry, my phone's going off in the background. So just over and over and over until I'm happy with how I've drawn it and how full it looks. And then on the final turn, now I'm happy with that. I'm going to add 1 more. And instead of bringing my needle out here again, I'm going to bring it out at the bottom of the head where I inserted it in the first place. Clean it up as I go. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut this end short because we're done with, we don't need it to be long anymore. And so I have my 2 yarn ends that came out of the same opening. I'm going to tie 2 square knots, make them tight. 1, 2, and then take scissors and tuck this inside of the body. Tuck, tuck, tuck. And that is how you embroider a nose.
Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too much information. You can always rewatch if you need to. Save this video for later for reference. We went over a lot of information in this one. I understand that it might be a little overwhelming, but just let it sink in because it will make sense eventually. Over time, all of this will make sense and become super useful and just kind of like second nature, because the more you consume yourself with this hobby, the more familiar you'll become with it and the more that everything will just click and make sense. So hopefully some of this helped. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you here for the next part 5. Yeah, have a great day.